It's day 3 of our dig at Broughton Castle in Oxfordshire. We've discovered substantial walls and wings of a huge Roman villa, and evidence that it was decorated with mosaics and frescoes.
This is going to make Vitruvius happy.
This is high class, really.
Oh, really? But so far, it seems that the 4-sided villa that we were expected might actually be 2-sided.
It's not showing a lot of buildings on the south and on the west.
But Stuart is convinced that there's a spectacular series of ponds terraced into the landscape.
These are so exciting to me because they are very, if that's what they might be, they are very, very rare indeed.
It's day 3 and just a matter of hours left to find out how many sides the villa had and whether any of its posh interior remains intact.
I want to try and get in there and try and see what those finds might reveal. I think there are some interesting stories that we could unravel.
Yeah, speaking of which, I need to go back and check out the sarcophagus, which started this whole thing. How do we forget her? This is Women in History, guys.
Metal detectorists are checking the area in which the sarcophagus was found. Then we can carefully expose the stone coffin to see if we can add anything to what was recorded when she was discovered in the 1960s. We're also expanding Trench 10, where we found the horse's head yesterday, and which could be at the bottom of an elaborate series of ponds.
We're standing here at the moment. There's the villa.
Yep.
And you can see that it's been artificially created into a series of rectangles up the valley. And if you look at the wider area, you can see how the natural channels are all higgledy-piggledy, whereas these are extremely
super neat and
Roman. So, for instance, the pond at the top can feed water off at a higher level because it's higher than the villa up on the hill, so you can get water to the villa up there. The middle level could feed water off into another level, and a lower level, of course, can feed a bathhouse if there was one down here. So it's a whole kind of water management system, stepping down the slope in stages. So as well as being decorative, it's very functional as well.
Yeah.
And each of these ponds that are in the valley, to be able to stop them flooding over and causing chaos, they have to have channels that take the water around when it's really rainy and wet and everything. So you expect overflow channels to flow down the side as well.
Look at the magnetics. Now we've expanded the survey. You can see all these water channels that Stuart's been talking about coming down the valley on different terraces, and the main channel at the bottom following this alignment, and you can see it's immediately below these really nice responses here, and the suggestion that that is sort of the drainage channel going down to the stream on the eastern side of the site.
It's really incredible. You can even see the dams that we were talking about. They're perfect straight lines.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing.
So the thing is, would they be feeding just a bathhouse?
You could have a bathhouse, you could have a mill even, you could have fish ponds.
So it could be a more practical space.
What's the most important thing here? Is it the villa or is it the water? Because to me, this just seems out of all proportion to the size of the villa. Maybe this is a productive landscape.
Maybe it's part of its own economy here.
Yeah, it's an economy around water management, fish maybe, marine products.
This is likely to be in the final phase though, isn't it, Neil, when the villa's at its height?
But maybe the fact that you've got that little aisled building right next door to the pond or whatever it is down there,
that's the processing plant.
It's too much of a coincidence.
This engineered landscape must have been a very important element of life within the villa. So, with less than a day to go, we're putting another trench in to try and find out whether the ponds were industrial or decorative.
You just pour it in. Yeah, just stand back.
Yeah, that's messy.
Right,
And Naomi's processing a sample of the soil from Trench 10.
This is that very clay, gloopy stuff, isn't it, from beneath the horse's head?
It is quite gloopy. Look at that straight away. I've not even touched it. Not even touched it.
Oh, yeah.
This is carbonised grain.
Oh my goodness!
So we've got more cereals. I mean, as to why the grain is in there if it's being moved by water is interesting, but it's definitely in there. And I've had seeds from most of the trenches, so there's definitely an agricultural element going on here. It's what you call a seed extravaganza.
Do you love 2,000-year-old grains?
The sheer number of grains found in this trench alone supports the idea that agriculture might have been part of the economy of the villa, and the pottery is suggesting that this was in use over many centuries.
My sense of it when I saw the sherds coming out of the ground was that there was quite a lot of 2nd century material, and some of it fairly certainly is, but we have at least now got a decent sort of later 3rd into 4th century component.
While the finds are beginning to tell the story of life in the villa, it's hard work trying to understand the archaeology, as Matt is discovering in Trench 1, where he's been trying to find out where the walls stop and the floors start.
So the problem that I've been having with this wall here, it's a beautiful wall, very clear, lovely Roman villa wall, but where was the floor? Where were people standing? And it's been really, really annoying me for a couple of days, but I think I've nailed it. See here, we've dug right into the corner there, we have beautifully faced stone, so that's probably a bit of upstanding wall, I reckon. You would not have that underground. You've got the wall coming along here, very nice, very nice. And then these courses are a bit wobbly, a bit out of place, so I think they're probably sitting within a foundation cut. But if you go all the way along to here, you can see this course of stones is sticking out, and I think that is where the foundation is. So that's upstanding wall, and that's the floor level at last. And on the other side of this wall, you can see the stones, or the foundation stones sticking out there. And so that's our floor level on the other side. What have we got?
Sorry to interrupt. Is there anything?
Oh my goodness me. You just find that?
Yeah, just in here.
Just in there?
Just in the rubble.
Connect, look at that. Well, I would say that that's bronze, isn't it? Some kind of copper alloy, you can tell by the green. And I think, if you look carefully, there's actually some decoration on the middle.
Post-excavation, this piece was taken for X-ray fluorescence analysis, which showed a very high lead content, probably from solder attaching a mirror surface to the decorative back. It would be lovely to think that the face reflected in it might have belonged to Our Lady in the sarcophagus. And perhaps she was using the oil from the Unguent bottle, found buried with her when she was first discovered in the 1960s. The farmer who found her remembers that day well.
Well, we were ploughing the field, knocked a corner off, went up and there was a stone, knocked a corner off it. I thought, well, funny, so I got off and had a look. I could see it was a coffin, so I put my hand in, pulled 2 bones out. They were thigh bones, and thought, well, better put them back in. So I did. And there was a smelling bottle in there, which is now in the Ashmolean Museum, I understand. Yeah.
Yes.
And at the time, they said it was the first one found outside Syria.
Wow.
That's what they said, but whether that was right, I don't know.
Well, it's not the case now. There's lots more of them, but maybe it was right in 1963. Yeah. It just underlines how important and cosmopolitan this place is, with links so far.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you found it, did it have any iron fittings on top?
Yeah, it got 6, I believe. I thought it was 6.
Ooh, we certainly picked up
holding the stone,
one.
because there was a stone on top of that, you see, which was about 4 inches thick.
What would be very interesting to know is whether she's on her own, or whether there are other burials here that are perhaps a little bit deeper, which no one's encountered yet.
No, the only thing was, being a lead-lined coffin, she was obviously somebody very important, wasn't she?
Absolutely. Yeah. The bottle, the lead lining, the stone coffin.
Lead's still in there.
Yes, it produced a very good signal from the metal detecting. Very loud, very long.
Yeah.
Jimmy's radar shows hints that there might have been a road beside the sarcophagus, or even possibly some sort of building, but it's hard to be sure. We found evidence of buildings which correspond to the geophys in the northern range and the eastern range, but what seems to be a garden wall in the west. But the radar also suggests possible buildings in the southern range. So Carenza has put in another trench to see whether we can find anything, but nothing solid has materialised so far. The evidence in the trenches and the radar suggests that the villa was probably remodelled over centuries, and coins found on site might help us to date these building phases.
And so we've been able to date this coin to within 5 years. So it dates between AD 330 and 335.
The latest coin depicts Constantine II and represents a period when there are a huge amount of coins in circulation.
This is a fine looking man, isn't it? I mean, it's just such a beautiful coin.
The spread of coins found by the metal detectorists is beginning to reveal when different parts of the villa were in use.
But I'm going to start off with first century coins. Now, very few.
Yes.
And if it was in use in the first century, there would be more, but there aren't as many coins in use in Britain in the first century as later. If you add in second century coins, again, it's background noise. If we add in the third century coins, though, this is when the villa gets going, and you can really see that there's people losing coins around the villa buildings in the 3rd century, but a lot of them are being lost down here in the south. What is happening here that means that people are losing more coins? Are there more people? Are they more careless? Are the coins smaller, lower value? Then when we add in the 4th century, there's lots of these green ones, and you can't really see the pattern. But look, if we take out the 1st and the 2nd and the 3rd, the North Range is seeing the large amount of coin loss in the 4th century, but in the 3rd century, more is being lost in the south. So I would guess that something is changing. Maybe a South Range is going out of use.
Yes.
Maybe a North Range is being built. But the two together...
Perhaps the buildings along the southern range, suggested by Jimmy's radar, might have gone out of use by the time the villa was in its heyday, in the latter part of the Roman period.
So I'm going to ask you to speculate a little bit, because these are obviously, I think, fairly wealthy or well-off people. Are they farmers, traders? What are we thinking?
Well, one of the theories, actually, that Sam Moorhead of the British Museum actually supports is that perhaps England at this time was the breadbasket of the Roman Empire, and actually a lot of villas were in charge of growing grain. They were making wheat that was then going out, being turned into bread to feed the Roman army, particularly on the Rhine. And so one of the ideas of this explosion of Roman villas during the 4th century comes down to that.
So if this is true, perhaps the Isle building near Trench 10 was something to do with grain manufacture.
Coming this way?
Yeah, it looked more like it was going like there before sort of thing, and that's it's quite nice actually.
Martin Fines has joined Theo to investigate a line of stones which appear to be protecting the building from the ponds and correspond to the curving feature on the geophys. And just next door, in Trench 11, the first signs of a causeway and another pond are beginning to emerge along with a thin wall.
That might actually just be revetment with a pond on that side, because this rise up here, you can see where my white car is there. Yes. Beyond it, it drops down again. This is, in effect, the bottom dam holding water back up there. You can see all the damp area, that's the remnant of it.
Yeah.
So there's like a corridor that comes through here that might actually be an entrance.
Okay.
You know, ponds on that side, pond that side.
Yeah.
So this might actually be, in effect, a land surface. Yeah. And then that might be revetting it to hold it back. I mean, it's just an idea.
Okay.
By lunchtime on day 3, Hilda's beginning to get to grips with the complicated archaeology in Trench 2 in the northeast corner of the villa.
But I am here, standing in a room.
Right. And what kind of finds? Anything that talks about high status? We've got any sort of status finds?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got lots of box flue tiles, which suggest a heating system, small tesserae from this area, larger tesserae from the other corner of the trench, suggesting a mosaic. So I would say that's a pretty high status room, lots of domestic refuse. So it could be a dining area.
Yeah.
And I'm still working away here, and we think there's actually an internal wall here, and it might be several phases. So I've got one line coming in here, but then it suddenly jumps over. There's another line here, and then yet another one there. So they may have been kind of changing up the rooms a bit.
But you'd expect that, because if you think this villa could have been in use for something like 250 years, you're not going to leave it untouched. It could be changing and constantly evolving over time.
So it's possible that this was the dining room in which Our Lady entertained. We've now exposed more of her coffin, and it looks like the lid might have had some decoration on it.
We're just revealing up the sarcophagus really nicely here, but we're coming onto a number of bits of sort of erratic bits of limestone which we think might be surviving parts of the lids, and you can see where that would have been previously there with the iron bracket. But it seems like it's decorated, so there are 3 line depressions and then 3 ridges, possibly a 4th one just there. I mean, it could be beautiful.
Only an important and wealthy family would have been able to afford a decorated stone coffin such as this, curved at the end and with a lead lining. Her burial would have justified an elaborate ceremony. The grave would probably not have been hidden away as it is now, but may have been raised up from the ground and marked by some sort of monument to remember her by. AIDAN has been putting a face to the lady by creating a Roman-style fresco based on the painted plaster we found yesterday in Trench 6.
Yeah, so I've just put on what the Greeks call the proplasmos, the first layer, which is translucent but flat. So now we're just starting the highlighting. So we'll alternate between highlighting, shadow, highlighting, shadow.
I am so nervous.
So keep away from the fingers and just pretend that's the garment.
That's all I can see.
You can do it.
I don't want to ruin your fingers, they're so good.
There's going to be a lot of work on the fingers, so no matter. It's better to go a little bit over the finger than not at all. We don't want a sort of white.
Oh!
Oh, you're fired!
Well, here it is. It's in this little box.
Okay.
The metaverse, and you're going to step into it, okay?
Stuart, Eve, Raysan and Matt have been modelling the villa to explore how virtual reality can be used to help visualise what we're finding in the trenches.
I feel a bit nervous.
If you're going to be sick, let me know.
Oh my God, it's like being in some futuristic world, and yet behind I can see this Roman villa. It feels a bit like being at sea, you know, it's a bit sort of seasickness feeling, but I kind of like it.
You can walk around a little bit.
Can I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, make sure you don't crash
But
it.
yeah, I don't want to hit anybody. Okay, so I'm looking down the slope now, I think. I'm kind of looking out, down the bottom. I've got the colonnade and the portico on one side of me, on the other, and it is kind of extraordinary. You are kind of walking through the past.
I mean, this model, Neil, we can change. So when anything changes in the archaeology, we can start adding extra wings or a new tower or anything like that. Or if mosaics turn up, we can put them in so you can walk on them virtually at least.
God, it's fantastic. I mean, it really is. I guess this is the future of the past.
Details will help to flesh out this reconstruction, and Dani's picked out some of her favourite finds that show quite how luxurious this villa might have been in its heyday.
So just to show you here, here's a roof tile. How fantastic is that? It's even intact with the hole where it would have been nailed to the roof. How heavy is that?
That is really heavy.
And there would have been hundreds of these, all lining the roof, keeping it nice and watertight, hopefully.
These tiles required a steeper pitch than the clay tiles, and in some local buildings, both were used within the same structure. And whilst the tiles kept the rooms dry, the hypocaust kept them warm.
The hypocaust is the underfloor heating, but it would have come up through the walls. So this box flue here would have been on the walls, heating the walls up, going up vertically. And actually on this example, there's a little side inlet here, actually. Yeah. So the air would have actually been flowing horizontally as well as vertically.
Under the floor, the air flowed between the stacks of tiles, like this one we found with a little dog paw print.
I love that. That's like a snapshot in time, isn't it? You can just imagine this dog sort of legging it across. would have made the craftsmen preparing it quite angry, I should imagine.
And above this was another layer of tiles on which was laid a mosaic floor.
Oh, the tesserae.
The tesserae, which is, formed the mosaic on the floor. We've got lovely different colours here. So we've got oranges, we've got whites or greys, and the different sizes probably correlate to whereabouts it is in the mosaic. So these quite probably went around the border, and then you had the finer pieces for the more decorative elements in the centre.
And another wonderful detail for our virtual reconstruction has survived.
We've even got window glass.
What? No.
How cool is that? So look at this here, 2 pieces of Roman window glass.
That is, and it is so fine as well. It is so, you would imagine that was a modern piece of glass.
And amongst the building's rubble are personal touches that connect us to the people living in the villa.
This is a lovely bit of a beaker, a drinking vessel, very fine ware. This is the base, and just on it here you can see a thumbprint where the potter who made this dipped it into the slit.
Glorious.
And it's left the impression of his or her thumbprint.
See, that's the beauty of archaeology, isn't it? That you want to get close to people in the past, to transcend the gap across the 2,000 years or so since this was created. And then you see something like that, and you just feel so connected.
Yes.
And the more we reveal of her villa, the closer we feel to the lady in the sarcophagus.
So, talk me through what you found. That's the metal clamp I was reading about, right?
Yeah, so we found 4 of the ones that we know about. So we've got the one there, a very bent one on the far end, another one here, and another one here.
Oh my goodness.
And it looks like they're going down around the outside of the stone sarcophagus. And we've got the top bit exposed really nicely, but the bottom is still hidden away under this rubble.
So did they hold the lid on originally?
Yeah, that's right. And we think we've still got bits of the lid still around that have been broken up.
Stone?
Yeah, we believe so. And there's a really nice example of why we think that. So this is one of the bits of stone that were placed here, which beautifully flat on one side and then shaped on the edge there. And if we use our imagination a bit, you can see
it just slots
that slot would have gone in just there and gone all the way around. So really nice to come back down, and we're even finding bits of possibly carved stone. I don't know if you can see these ridges on these 2 bits of stones. So there's a story coming out already. Yeah. It's lovely archaeology. Yeah. Even getting a slight hint of the lead lining over the end here.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. And so she wasn't tall, was she? She was only 5 foot nothing.
Very small.
The research
you can't imagine a modern human fitting in today. Sort of expect to find the foot end down here, we suspect.
We're deep into the afternoon, and we have substantial walls in the north and in the east, but there's nothing like them in the trenches in the southern range. What is much clearer is the detail of the pond system in trenches 10 and 11.
The line of stones that we had, we've cleaned up around them. Your suggestion of, with them dividing the 2 different areas either side of them being some kind of revetment alongside the causeway does seem to hold true at the moment.
So it should hold back the water originally as well, shouldn't it?
Yes.
This is the same fill we looked at earlier on, isn't it?
Yes, yes, so the kind of upper fill of the pond, yeah. So in this little test pit down the bottom here, we've got down to the natural and just found a little sequence of layers filling the pond, started from a kind of sandy initial fill while it was still in use and then kind of gradually silting up.
Good, it's got a nice shallow pond coming down this direction. How did this resolve itself in Villa Trench?
So again, we've got some dark pond fills down this end of the trench. Geophysics suggests that it's a separate pond from the one in the last trench.
Right.
And you can see we've put a much larger sondage in that one over
which
there.
Has become a pond.
Which has become a pond, yes.
Okay. This looks particularly interesting.
Yeah, so I think the kind of larger curving line of stones there is possibly the edge of the pond. They've kind of put that there as a kind of to hold it back or to
stabilise
it,
to stop it slipping in. Okay.
And then we seem to have this kind of roughly cobbled surface here, which I think possibly did extend all the way across this kind of patch where it seems to have been robbed out now.
Do you think it's some sort of pathway or something?
I think so, yeah, some kind of, at least a walking surface around the pond. And then that seems to come all the way up to this, which is the western wall of the aisle building, which is then beyond us.
So the proximity of this aisle building and the ponds in a line like this perhaps suggests this building has something to do with the process that's going on here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know what, but
no.
That's really good. I mean, those two trenches have really answered the question about, are there two ponds? Yes, there are two ponds.
Yes, yeah.
Naomi's post-excavation work suggested that the horse's head in the first pond was buried with grains around it. So her theory is that it might have been linked to the October horse ceremony, marking the end of the agricultural and military campaigning seasons. This supports Dani's idea that the villa might have earned its wealth by supplying grain to the military bases across the empire. So perhaps the impressive water management system was all part of this manufacturing process. With time running out, Neil's drawing together all of the evidence that we have for the villa, starting in the northwest corner, which we originally thought would be a bathhouse.
You were hoping to find a bathhouse.
Yeah.
But actually what we've got is this really well-preserved Roman building. Can you see this fantastic Roman wall coming across here? And in the corner, can you see the very clear corner? So this is the inside of a range of rooms going down the hill. That's outside.
And this room that we're actually in now, how big would it have been?
I think it would have come out to about here, and at least 10 rooms or something, stretching down the hillside as far as Hilda's Trench, all terracing down, cutting down the slope.
Yes. So this is a suite of luxurious, really well proportioned rooms used for local bigwigs, entertaining family.
I think public rooms.
Yes.
And then also perhaps some more private chambers. And here at the opposite corner, we've still got the outside wall that we saw in Matt's trench going along. Can you see that?
Absolutely.
Row of stones?
Yes.
And then we've got another well-appointed room here.
So what this might have been a sort of dining room, eating quarters.
Yeah. And then the building turns the corner again and now heads off across this way.
It's just vast though, Neil.
It's a huge thing, isn't it? Now in the opposite corner, this peg marks a large square feature that we saw on the radar. So one wall here, but it keeps coming. It's a huge room.
This is vast.
And it comes across, and here's the opposite corner. So I think we could be talking about a kind of pavilion, perhaps a tower room. And you know, what a great place to kind of look out across the landscape, have your sundowner drink, but also to be seen as well. But the big discovery was we thought this originally had 4 wings. This wing has kind of disappeared. You know, we just haven't found any evidence of a range of rooms on this side. And indeed in this trench it just looks like rough deposits of farmyard or metalling. But I guess it means we've got a very open aspect on this side of the villa.
But doesn't that speak to the poetry of this particular place, that you have this spectacular villa on a hillside and then all facing out toward the south with a water feature cutting through in the mid-distance, and then beyond, on that hill opposite, some sort of marker to the ancestors. I think that's beautiful.
The further we dig around the sarcophagus, the more it becomes evident that such an important monument needs more time than we have left to us. We hope to return at a later date to re-examine the burial and the environmental evidence around it. Aidan's depiction of Our Lady gives us at least a glimpse into what she might have looked like.
We had those bits of plaster that we pulled up out of the ground just yesterday, and then here you get a sense of what it must have looked like.
Yeah, Our Lady in the sarcophagus, just seeing some lovely bright eyes makes her seem just a bit more real.
And 2,000 years later, the current landowners are able to connect with her through the finds.
So that's made in France and imported over into Britain. It's called Samian ware. It's like they've got very best bone china See how glossy and red it is?
Yes, and fine. Can we take it one step further and extract sound from some of these pieces?
Sound?
Yes, then we know what they were saying.
Many and these are some of the coins that came up. This is a really nice one, which is a silver denarius. And
that is nice.
The coin dates from around AD 221 to 235.
Okay. Do you know, I was forgetting to breathe when I held that. Do you know the feeling? I'm sure you do.
That's why everyone wants to become an archaeologist, that feeling that you're the first person to see something in 2,000 years.
Yes, yes.
And can you imagine how cross you'd be when you dropped it?
Is that 2,000?
Yes.
I can't hear anything.
Over the last 3 days, the combination of aerial surveys, geophys and good old-fashioned excavation has given us a glimpse into the life of an important Roman landmark. The luxurious villa that we've found might be slightly smaller than we thought, but it's still vast, and it's a fascinating example of Roman engineering and landscaping. We know that some of the internal decoration was opulent, with mosaics and painted plaster. Although we didn't find the bathhouse, we know that there was one somewhere, and post-excavation work revealed that it might have been near to Trench 2. But the setting was perhaps the most impressive and unique feature about the estate, with ponds and water meadows terraced into the hillside, perhaps for milling and fulling. And maybe one day we will return to find out more about the lady who lived and died here.
She would have enjoyed the beautiful views across this incredible valley, but about 350, things began to change.
The villa was decaying, the Romans were leaving, and over the next 1,000 years, this beautiful site disappeared from view.
For all of us, it's been a privilege to spend the last 3 days getting to know this extraordinary landscape and the villa that must have meant so much to the lady in the sarcophagus.
For exclusive insights, 3D models, Q&As and polls, please join Time Team on Patreon.